Now, I'm going to say this before I kind of go any further, because Pete's already stressing about some technical issues and was saying something that sounded like a foreign language that he looked like I was meant to understand. But obviously we all know that my technological prowess begins and middles and ends at knowing how to email and text and maybe call, and that's it. So essentially, apparently it's working now, so he can calm down. It's our anniversary today. It's me and my husband's anniversary. Isn't that nice? We're still together. And it's been 9 years of being married. Been together longer, but we've been married for 9 years. So I thought I'd come on and celebrate that with you. Because if me and Pete can make a relationship work, then I think that's testament to the fact that most people can make a relationship work. And I think that's a good positive way to start this, and to give those of you out there hope who may think that it will never happen. It happened for us, so it can happen for anyone at all. Pete keeps going, do that. That's because I'm wearing McKenny's Crime Cult top. He's dead proud because he's made this himself. Like, I don't mean he's gone out and woven the textiles and figured out how to do all of those transfer things, but he's done all this. He's screen printed all this. It's like really good. It's like a little feeling when you do that. It's all him. It's not like rubbish stuff. It's like really good stuff. So look, Kenny's Crime Cult. It's official. You're all in it, even those of you who don't watch me on crime. So just accept it. That's what cult leaders do, isn't it? They're just like you're in it now. It's happened. You're in it. So simple as that. Right, I'll get on with things in a second. Hope we're all okay. It's a bit blustery out there. I went for my 6-mile walk before. I hope a lot of you are doing that. I hope a lot of you are following my suit and lead and following me on this walk. Just walk for 90 minutes every day in the white light if you are capable and physically able. And if not, and you can't walk properly, then still get outside for 90 minutes a day in the white light. It's really bad this time of year. I don't know whether any of you have felt it, but probably in the last 4 to 5 weeks, some of you may have felt a drop in your mood. Some of you have started feeling like you want to eat a lot more starchy, sugary foods. Some of you will be feeling really lethargic. Some of you might be feeling a little bit more angry and impatient. They're all symptoms of subsyndromal SAD, which is not seasonal affective disorder in the classification level of that stage where you go to get classified by a clinical psych or a psychiatrist. I'm talking about 80% of us are impacted on pretty heavily by the season changing and it becoming darker night. So if any of you are out there feeling, what is wrong with me? I feel miles more anxious or miles more depressed than usual. That's one of the big indicators. So getting outside in the white light, it does quite a lot of really positive things. First of all, just on a common sense level, guys, it gives us fresh air, which we really do need. I mean, they may be trying to tell us that there is no fresh air anymore and that those trees have all stopped being able to work and not happening to be able to do things like absorb and then sort it all out for us. But nevertheless, it's still out there and it's still fresh if you want to go. And it's good for you to get outside. Don't listen to them saying it isn't. Secondly, on a really clear chemical level, melatonin, serotonin, all of these chemicals in our brain, it needs to have white light to regulate it. So essentially, when you go outside, it regulates that, which means that you don't get too much melatonin, which makes you feel sleepy and dopey, and you do get more serotonin, which kind of helps to keep you alert. So just be aware of that. So like I went out on my walk before, and that was a long procrastination to get to the point, which was going to be, my hair's a bit of a mess. That was basically it. I managed to weave in both psychological and biochemical elements to that scenario, but it was just a comment on the fact that I may look like I come from 1996. Do you know what I mean? And it's all right, because I was around in 1996, and indeed, I did look a bit like this in 1996, just left weathered and lined. Anyway, let's move on. Hi, Emma. Oh, by the way, before I start that, people who are on Facebook are going to find it easiest to send me questions. So if you're not on Facebook, you might want to hop over if you've got a question. I'm not saying it won't get seen on other platforms. I'm just saying because the feed is mainly on there on the live, it's just the easiest for us, even though I go out onto all the other platforms. So just if you've got like a burning issue, because I always try to answer the ones that come on during my actual live. Let's move on. Hi, Emma. I wasn't sure where to ask a question regarding a live. My partner passed this morning, suicide. I don't know what to do. I don't think I can cope. I can't see any way forward unless I'm at peace with him. I can't help but feel it's my fault. So first of all, clearly the most important thing is to acknowledge that that's a profound and distressing and disturbing loss beyond reason and beyond words. And there's not going to be anywhere near as much that I can say in this moment that can, to any way, shape or form, reach you in a way that you deserve to be reached. But there are some really clear themes that come up that I completely relate to. For those of you who might not know that my dad killed himself just over 2 years ago, I'm coping with being a daughter of suicide. I'm very open about that because I think that we're really shit at talking about it. And I think that the problem with that is it's really isolating and alienating when you suddenly belong to a club that you never thought you'd be in, but then you don't have the opportunity to leave and you want people who understand it, i.e. people who are in that club, to hear you. So the reason I talk about it is because I'm in that club. I'm in the survivor of suicide club, and it's really hard. And it's hard for lots of reasons. And the first one is no one tells you that, and this is subjective. So this is my experience, but this is subjective and it's well researched now because I became obsessed after my dad's death to look at the research associated with suicide. I wanted to learn, I wanted to understand it from both a clinical perspective and an emotional and an experiential perspective. So because of that, I think I am in a position where I can kind of look at the subjectivity of my own bias and also equate it and mirror it with the research, etc. And the truth is, stage one is that people should tell you you're probably going to want to kill yourself. That's going to be one of the most immediate feelings that you'll have. It'll be, I don't want to be here. I want to cease this pain. I can't do this. And no one tells you that will happen, and no one tells you that it's okay that you feel that way, because we don't talk about suicide. I mean, bad enough at talking about grief, but we don't talk about suicide. It's like a dirty little secret that isn't dirty or little at all, and it certainly shouldn't be a secret. The person who left you didn't do it because they were ashamed or they were shameful. They didn't leave you because you weren't good enough or because they didn't love you. They left you because they were in intolerable pain in that moment. And that's a really important distinction and definition because we don't talk about that. Chances are your suspicions are right. If it had been another moment, they wouldn't have done it. That's the reality. It was a moment. This idea that we're going to breathe in all of this depression, devastation, helplessness, hopelessness, hate living, and this desire to escape as if it was something that was constant just is unfair and unrealistic, and also doesn't synergize with the relationship that you'll have had with your partner. The likelihood is most of the time they'll have been okay and they'll have loved their life and they'll have loved you within that life. But then sometimes things conspire, and in a moment something just pushes you over that edge. And so if we are to put all of our emphasis on the moment where somebody takes their life, we lose every bit of meaning that made them. The joy that they experienced with you, falling in love with you, being with you in an intimate way that only you two could ever share. The words that you said to each other that made you feel incredibly special. The beauty of your connection and the journeys that you had, the adventures that you lived. Every single one of those is as poignant and pertinent and real and substantial as it is now as it was then. It doesn't change. So the feelings that you have, such as what went wrong, well, it was a moment. It was a moment. We have to work, of course, on contributory factors in life to figure out, well, how could it be changed? But ultimately, when it's dealing with a suicide, you can't do that. And for you to then say, well, what was wrong? What did I do wrong? And the guilt that you feel that, how could I have stopped this? They're completely natural. I think about my dad. I think about fucking up resuscitating him. I think about fucking up when they came and put the whatever it's called, defibrillator on him. And then I was screaming he was dead. And they went, oh yeah, I think he is. And he was completely salvageable at that point. It just happened. I just cut him down. And I didn't say, get on with it, and that isn't my fault. But the point is, it doesn't matter that it isn't my fault because it felt like my fault. It feels like my fault. I feel guilty, and that's okay because that's part of my journey, and I've got to learn to deal with that, and I've got to figure out that you can coexist with guilt and love, and you can forgive yourself and still accept you wish you'd done better all in the same moment. They're all okay. So the fact that your partner and you had a great relationship, but in the end you couldn't save him, you're going to feel some guilt for that. But that isn't guilt because you deserve it. It's guilt because you absolutely love that person, you'd have done anything to save them. And the fact that you weren't able to seek a desire to control and be able to change that. So you go, oh, right, well, if I'd just done this or I'd just done that. And really, all of those conversations you're going to have a million times, but none of them are going to give you any closure. The only one that will give you closure is this. You loved them. You would have saved them in every way, shape and form. You would have given your life for them. You would have done anything in a heartbeat that you could have potentially done as a human being that was possible, that was not something that was so outrageously inhumane, that didn't mean that you had to be a god to change it. You would have done all of the things in between and probably more to save him. That's all you need to know. That you loved him, that you absolutely love him still, and that you would have saved him. And you would have sacrificed everything to do that. But you know what? That isn't your journey. Your journey, you didn't get to save him. Your journey is now different. And it's hard, it's really hard, because it's going to make you somebody you didn't even know you were. I'm nothing like the girl I was 2 years ago. Probably used the word girl as well, because even though I'm a middle-aged woman, I felt very childlike and naive and innocent 2 years ago, and now I feel grown and worn, and it's okay, and that's a good thing, because I'm learning and I'm figuring out who I am, and I'm astounded that even at my age, I know nothing about myself. And that's both beautiful and chaotic and interesting and scary and beautiful and broken, all in exactly the same instance. So your guilt, it will find its way and it will come out in the most interesting of positions, and you'll learn to be a better human than you ever dared dream you would be. And that's one of the most painful parts of it, that you get to be this better version, this more rounded, more compassionate, more funny, more interesting. All of those things come from this pain. And then that leads on to the where you are and the fact that you don't think you can do this, and that's the most normal thing. It's really weird to me when people don't have that conversation now, because if you knew how to cope with this, well, you would have had to have been through it several times before, because believe me, there is no blueprint for coping in this way. And secondly, the chances are if you really knew how to cope with this, you probably wouldn't have loved him. Not in the way that you should love him. The way you love him is that he was your everything. And now your everything is no more at this moment in this dimension. I'm sure, without a shadow of doubt, everybody knows my bias. I put it out there because there'll be some knob who wants to come on and have a go about the fact that professionally I use my faith as some kind of desire to control others around me and bring them into my flock, which we all know is a cult. But the truth is that I do genuinely believe that you'll see him again, and that this is just about a dimensional experience, and it's a blink of an eye of consciousness, and you'll be together. But your journey didn't end, and your journey shouldn't end. But where it lends you and where it arrives for you, in that moment before you take your last breath, before you die, that's the adventure that is yet to come. And essentially for you, it's okay to know that you don't want to be here for this moment in time, but just stick at it, because it does change. It doesn't mean that you don't have bleak moments. Even a year down the line, 2 years down the line, you do. And you are existentially and all-encompassing wise, you'll miss him. And knowing how to coexist and live in the moment when you are just going through the motions and enjoying your food and chatting to your friends, and at the same time just stuck in this place of deep loss, like a transcendence from what was to what is. It's challenging, but you just have to do it. And it's awful, because I want to be able to give you words of comfort and give you advice and strategies to soothe it, but I'm not going to, because it doesn't want soothing. The poignancy of the pain is with purpose, and the purpose of the pain is to remind you of just what a gratitude you have for that life that you shared with him, and for what an abundance of love that filled hole that now feels so vacuous and empty, that was absolutely poignant and purposeful and beautiful. And in the end, that big hole that you feel is just impossible to even begin to fill, that's something you realise you don't want to fill. It's the very essence of the person that isn't with you. The absence is the presence. And in the end, that big hole is something that you just hold and you just keep it safe. And you don't have to swim in it or drown in it quite as often, but it's just there. And it's like this massive hole just gets to a place where you can hold it more comfortably. But hold it is all you'll ever do. You'll never be able to fill it. You won't want to. But just trust me, the guilt will become something of purpose and meaning. And the not wanting to be here is exactly where you would imagine you would be, because you are in deep pain. But it will ease. It won't get easier, it will ease, because you're going to get used to it. You're going to bubble wrap it, and you're going to figure out what it's here to teach you. I said to my friend's a clinical psychologist, and we were having this conversation this weekend. We had a few days where we just spent talking about where we were at, and we were kind of discussing the way that grief and life and our experiences form us, and at times, you know, they're incredibly telling and they're incredibly painful and they're incredibly beautiful in the same moment. But we were kind of talking about the fact that, you know, when I think about my dad now, I didn't ever want to subdue that pain. And it was one of those things that a lot of people wanted me to do. You know, the doctor called me and was like, we need to get you on antidepressants. And I have no issue with antidepressants and people taking them. I think you should do what's right for you. But I didn't want to. I didn't want to subdue my pain. My pain was very, very important to me. It still is. I didn't need to depress the pain. I didn't need to switch the pain into anything other than the agony it was, because that's how I know where I am, if that makes sense. And that was connected to him. So it's the same with your husband or partner. I don't know whether you're married or not, but the point is, just know that everything you need to discover will come in time, and it's going to be shocking because you're not going to be who you believed you were, and it's going to be okay. All of that, not the loss, but it's going to be okay. And just trust that this pain and this agony and this desire to kill yourself and all the things that go with it no one ever talks about, just know you're in the place you need to be in this moment, and it's going to be something that creates something absolutely phenomenal in who you are that you have no idea of right now. And that's the only bit that's associated, I suppose, with a tiny glimpse of positivity. You're never going to get something that makes you go, I'm glad that happened, ever. If you could say to me now that everything I've learned, everything I've grown into, everything I've changed, everything I've developed, and it's been amazing. My foundations are stronger than they've ever been. My security in myself is much broader than I've ever known. Even the way that I live my life now is so much more authentic, and I rely on no one apart from myself and my resources within my family. That's it. It's not external anymore. All of that came from my father. All of it. But if you said everything can be taken from you, you don't even have your home, and you lose 25 years of your life to have him back, it would be a blink of an eye, and I'd do it. So I appreciate that when I talk about that positive strand, it's the micro detail in the mass of bleakness in that moment. Stay in touch. Let me know how you are. Make sure you message me. I'd like to know how you're feeling. And if you're feeling really bad, I just want you to send me a message, because I'll be there to say, just stay with it. The moment that he made that decision, it was a moment. And if there had been other things happening, he would not potentially have done it. So don't let people say this was inevitable, because that's not fair on you. They might say it to make you feel better. There's nothing you could have done. That isn't the same as saying it was never going to be your fault, because that's true. It was never your fault. But when people say there was nothing you could have done, and you can think of a million things that you could have, it's unhelpful. They do it for good reason. They do it to soothe you. It's unhelpful. It's okay to say, there are things I could have done, and there were with me too. There were lots of things I could have done, I should have done, and I didn't do them, and I regret them, and that's okay. I'm still a really good person, and it does not diminish how much I adored that man, and neither will it diminish what you felt for your partner. So just know that. and know that everybody's trying to do their best when they're giving you terrible advice as well. I wonder in tonight's live if you could help me with being vegan and others being rude about it, and how it doesn't feel integrated into society properly still, and how I feel so anxious about college open evening. Now, when you say how I feel so anxious at a college open evening, is that separate to the veganism? I'm only laughing because I'm like, is that about the veganism? What are they doing at college open evenings making you feel anxious about veganism? Well, there's a few things I'm going to say. First of all, we all know how I feel about certain megalomaniacs. But fortunately for you, on one level, one of the megalomaniacs is very into not allowing meat anymore, and it seems to be very big at the moment that we don't allow meat. So I think that the veganism issue is going to become less of an issue for anybody who is vegan, and it's probably going to become more of an issue for people who like eating meat, because it seems that, you know, the powers that be are bestowed that it's time for nobody to eat meat anymore, which obviously I'm totally behind the fact that I don't want any senseless killing. Totally behind no senseless killing. I'm not a meat eater, etc. But I am not for 1 minute going to suggest that organic beef grown, you know, how cows are reared in certain situations, is less healthy than the crap that they're making and fake meat products. But whatever, even I can see the ridiculous naivety of that reality. Isn't it about health? Shouldn't we be more healthy? Should we be more healthy? Or what we should do is we should highly process everything, then that'll work. That's worked. I mean, we can track back the highly processing bit, can't we? Ooh, obesity. Oh, is that what happened? Sorry, I digress. It's a bit annoying though. And bringing back to the problem, I have no issues, by the way, with anybody out there who chooses to eat how they eat. It's up to you. I'm just saying that we'll all be recognising there is a certain emphasis politically on what we should and shouldn't do. And I will not have it that health is put on the back burner to the reality of what we're going on. So, you know, organic beef, etc., organic eggs, organic dairy is clearly better than manufactured rubbish that lots of people are being pushed towards having. Having said that, it's really not anybody else's business what you eat, but it is your business how you react to that. And this is the same. So we'll use veganism as an example because this is the one that's being put out there. But actually, this really isn't just about veganism, because this has little to do with what you're eating and everything to do with how you're reacting to the way that people perceive you. So we can have any problem put into that situation. Your job is not to care, which is very simple when I say it, of course, and it's actually true as well. So I'm not saying that what I just said there isn't absolutely correct. The detail is correct. Your job is not to care, but getting to that point where you don't care, well, that is a bit of a stretch, isn't it? So firstly, you're young. I know you're young because you picture. When you're young, things feel more sensitive when you're a compassionate human being. Obviously, not everyone's that sensitive, but the majority of people are. Secondly, if you're agreeable, and you sound agreeable because you care about what other people think, agreeable people are lovely to be around, but also we're quite easy to walk over. So know that about yourself. And then most importantly, ask yourself this question. What is it about me that makes me feel that another person's judgment over my behaviour has more impact and worth than the ones that I have over my own? So your job as a vegan is to know that you are compassionate about human life, you are compassionate about animal life, you do not have any value of life different to every single being having sentience and meaning. And it is a challenging decision to make because it alters the way that you live your life. It is one of doing little harm. It is one of thinking very diligently about your actions. So the whole premise of veganism is to think diligently about your actions before you act. And that's not just an eating habit, it's a state of mind. So it's an active choice to step back from what everybody else does and instead to think about what is my impact in this world and on this world. And that's a moral choice to make, it's an ethical choice to make, it's a challenging choice to make. But the whole premise of it is that you know why you're doing it, you're informed as far as why that choice has become a big part of your life. And because you're informed, when another human being says, well, why are you vegan? You have lots of options to respond to that, which is firstly, I choose to do little harm, or it is, I don't feel that I want animal products in my body, or it is, I don't know, I just fancy trying not eating meat. You don't have to go any further. You don't have to explain yourself. Or it can just be, why do you eat meat? Ask them a reference question. What is it about you that makes you choose to do that? You can only be shifted in your confidence if you allow people to shift you in your confidence. You have to take responsibility and accountability for yourself and your own ideas. So be firm in them. Think about being vegan in the present day. I'm only saying this because I'm dead old now and I've got a son who's vegan. And obviously my veganism compared to his veganism is like a whole different world. So when I became vegan at 21, there was nothing vegan around. You got fries, cream bars, you got bourbon biscuits. I believe Jammy Dodgers became vegan, but they weren't when I was younger. You could occasionally get a muesli bar, but that was like your sweets. That was it. The rest you made. And as far as going out for vegan food, well, if you got a Lebanese falafel place, you might get lucky. But for the most part, it was a chippy, a few curries if you were really lucky. And most of the time you had to make it yourself, and none of it had anything processed in it. It was chickpeas, it was kidney beans. What I've done tonight, I've put loads of stuff to make a chili in the slow cooker. It takes time, and it actually takes thinking about flavours. And that's the way I've grown up. But my son, who's 19 now, he can just go and get a fast food, go to a burger joint. He has a lot of the kind of alternative meats, right? So the stretch isn't necessarily as big for everybody. So I'm saying to you, have you explored what veganism means to you? Because I think there's a lot of pressure on young people right now to be and do and act in a way that isn't necessarily something they've really thought out. And therefore, when they're challenged on it, they don't necessarily feel as sturdy in their position. And if you have gone vegan because you don't want to hurt animals, right? Great. But that's not enough. It just isn't enough. It's not sturdy enough, because people will say, well, do you wear leather? And you might be doing so. What's your excuse there? Or, well, what about bringing your kids up vegan? That's going to mean taking away choices from them. I've had that always about my choices to bring my kids up with no meat. It's get sturdy in your beliefs. Why are you? Is it because you hate the mass farming industry and the agonising pain of sentient creatures being, in my mind, murdered for meat industrially? Is that it? Is it to do with the fact that when you see battery hens strung up by their feet and having their heads chopped off in a conveyor belt, that distresses you? Is it that when you've heard veal removed from the mothers at a day old and they scream before they're taken off to be fattened and sold to be killed less than weeks old so that people can have foie gras, etc.? Is that it? You have to think, okay, or is it the environment? In which case, again, if you're doing it because you don't believe in the industrial farming and the Amazon being cut down, so on and so forth, because trees are really important, they are things that we need. Is it that? And if it's that, learn about it. Because it's okay for people who don't understand veganism to ask you the questions. And it's actually really important, I think, that we understand our own motivations. And it's not having a go at you, by the way. I'm just saying that a lot of people are going vegan because they think they should, but it's never enough to think you should. You have to know what it is about the reasoning behind your decisions. You have to be solid, because people will come and they will push those foundations. And also, you have to be willing to then allow them to ask you questions, because their motivation might be, well, I'm interested in this. I always think to myself, how, if somebody comes up to you, when you have a conversation with them, at the end, I want them to walk away going, I've thought about that. I'm wondering maybe that I can change my behaviour a little bit. Maybe they won't eat meat all the time. Maybe they will buy organic free-range eggs. Maybe they will think about buying beef that is organic. Things that will make it better for them and for the animal. My aim would be to get them to stop eating meat if that would be something they'd like to do. But how will I do that without knowing my own purpose and knowing my own reasoning? So do that. Figure it out, because don't expect people to be understanding of somebody who doesn't necessarily understand it themselves. It's like saying, what do you vote? Conservative. Why? I like blue. Or, did you go Brexit? Yes. Why? They painted stuff on the side of buses. By the way, I've not got an issue with Brexit. Whatever you chose, it's fine. I always get called anti-Brexit because I made a joke once about the fact that, you know, colonialism and stuff like that existed, and suddenly I got branded. I think in that particular one, it's probably one of my favourite articles about me. I think it was called Anti-Man, Anti-Brexit, Anti-Vax, and Anti-White. It's a lot of antis. Do you know what I mean? Anti-white being the one that kind of got me. I've got a mirror, and I'm pretty sure that I'm quite self-accepting, but okay. Okay, Jay. Okay. Sounds like a whole heap of weird, but if that's your journalism, knock yourself out, kiddo. I'll just get on with doing the career that I do without worrying about people like you having any power over me. Right, let's move on. Can you help me with advice? My aunt died last Christmas. My mum is suffering very bad, but I can't be the healing son she needs as I'm too stubborn and I'm not an emotional person. What do I do? So on one level, I want to go, that's really great that you firstly are acknowledging your own power and the level that you feel comfortable at operating. A lot of people don't do that. I don't think you are stubborn. I really don't. I think that stubborn suggests that you are actively trying to not do something because somebody's pushing you to do it. Now, again, I might get this wrong, but what I'm hearing when you're saying that is you don't have the capacity. When you think about that role, it's a, I know what you want from me, it's a no. That's a knowing boundaries. I wish a lot of people knew their boundaries. Oh, and okay, you feel some guilt there. It's clear because you wouldn't be saying this otherwise. You wish that you could, but it's just not your bag. It's not what you want to do. And I think that's really grown. And I wish more people had that knowledge that I'm not the kind of person who's going to be very good at this, because some people are really bad at knowing how to be there for people. And when they try, it's even worse. It's good that you have figured out it's not for me right now. You know, I'm not in that space. One, you're probably not old enough to emotionally be there for your mother. It's her job to be there for you. That's not a criticism of your mum, by the way, because she just wants somebody to look after and care for her, and that's normal. It's a human need, and you're probably the closest relationship she ever has because she gave birth to you. So therefore, you are everything to her. You are inextricably linked to her. But you don't have the power to understand how to heal a parent. It's the opposite that's meant to occur, and very often that doesn't even happen because humans are wonderfully flawed and we're rubbish a lot of the time at knowing what to do. That's okay, that's what makes us human. But instead, I think what you're saying here is she wants me to be somebody that provides her with a sense of healing and knows what to say to her at difficult times, and I don't know how to. And I think expressing that really compassionately to her is good enough. So saying to her, Mum, this is not for me, I love you dearly, I wish I knew how to do this, but I'm not good at it, is amazing. Secondly, how can you direct her? You know, you might not be able to do it emotionally, so what are you going to do strategically? Because I'm not going to let you off fully. You can't just go, I can't cope with this, therefore I will abandon her, because that's not happening. She's given up a great deal of her life to provide you with the amazing opportunities, no doubt, that you've got, and with the love that she's provided you with, and actually she needs to know that you do care for her. So what can you do? Well, if you're stubborn and you don't want to do anything, I'm going to make you go a little bit less stubborn and say, well, okay, I can't give her the emotional stuff, but I can give her the strategic stuff. So what support groups are in the area? Can you put her in touch with CRUISE, the bereavement helpline and the bereavement service? Can you get her to make an appointment with a GP to go and speak to them about getting a referral for some therapy? Do the strategic stuff. Don't just be like, right, I've got my boundaries. Emma said it's fine. I'm just going to walk off now. Do none of it. Don't do that. Pull back. You're okay not doing the emotional support. I get it. When it comes down to the strategic stuff, you can help because it's just as simple as suggesting a few things and helping her. Also, who are her friends? Who in her family is also feeling the same? Where can you find the support, the peers, the people who get it? How can you help alert her to those possibilities? And also, there's another thing. Sometimes when somebody is really sad about the loss, you think that they need you to give them advice. You think that they need a direction, as in emotional. I don't think that's true most of the time. So when your mum is struggling about your aunt, you don't need to save her. You can't. It's impossible. She's missing a sister. So it's an improbable scenario that you can walk in and be a hero anyway. What you can do is you can make her a cup of tea and you can distract her by going and taking her to the cinema or saying, do you want to watch a box set together? I suggest something like Schitt's Creek. It's very funny and it goes on for many seasons, which means that there's a growth and time period that you can actually spend with her. So there are ways that you can be current and present with your family who are struggling without being stuck in their pain. Sometimes you just need to provide that cup of tea and that smile and that hug. Hugs are really important because physical touch does make a massive difference to us in the grieving process. And Christmas is coming up and you can just be dead congruent about that and be like, I know it's a shit time, Mum. I don't know what to say about that, but I'm really happy to go out for some food or take you to a cinema or do something fun because I'm still here and we got to get used to this. So why don't we start some new celebrations, some new rituals? Christmas is difficult for me. I've always done the whole family's Christmas and it's be the second Christmas that I've kind of done it differently. So the first Christmas when my dad died, I had everybody and I had one of my friends who's a single mum with kids and she came as well. So about 18, 19 people around. And then the next Christmas I couldn't stay at home. I just went away and we just had an Indian takeaway because I just couldn't do it. And this Christmas I've got a smaller Christmas. My sister's family's expanded, so she does it separately and it's like growing pains with grief. So help her create some new rituals. That's what I'm going to do. Like do different things, work at it differently, help her in that way. So like I said, you can be stubborn, but you can't be abandoning. I'm struggling so much with self-harm, it's taking over my life and I don't know what to do, it's scaring me a lot. So first of all, if you are at a point where your self-harm is taking over your life and you're feeling scared, then I would strongly recommend that you probably need to speak to A&E and get to A&E. I'm saying that because I can't know where you are on that spectrum between harming yourself and permanently harming yourself. So therefore we have to think about like what is the risk right now, and if the risk right now is that you're scaring yourself, then going to hospital is going to be really important because they at least will be able to assess you and also explore if there are any support frameworks that can be built in. I'm not going to pretend that it's easy to do that. I'm not even going to pretend that the kind of response you always get is brilliant. It isn't. I'm saying that I think that it's really important that you have somebody take a look at where you are within these feelings of harm, because essentially if you're starting to feel afraid, there's probably a really good intuition within you. And like, don't ignore it. Don't ignore that fear. It's not there to punish you, it's there to inform you. You're being informed by your fear. If you are not feeling safe and you are feeling afraid of what might happen, that isn't you being dramatic, that's you listening intently to those feelings that are saying, this isn't okay, this is feeling really scary now. And what we need when we feel fear is courage, and courage comes in different forms, but arguably I'd say courage comes from calling the ambulance and saying, I need some help now. And if you feel like you can cope till tomorrow, then I would still arguably say that you need to ring up your GP and you need to call them and say, I am really struggling now, and you need to get in there. And you need to look at what the foundation of support is. Have you got therapy? Are you on a waiting list? If not, are there any services locally that you can connect with on a charity basis? Can you call somebody that at least is a friend or family member who gets where you are, so that you can have a bridge to safety where you know that you'll at least be able to be secure because you've got somebody around you who understands where you are? These are all things that are really important. Are there charities that you can speak to? Are there apps that you can download? Calm Harm is a good one. I think it's paid. You'll get a little bit for free, but it's worth the investment. It isn't expensive, but I promise you that doing something like Calm Harm, which helps you to work around almost like a cognitive behavioural program of how to manage harm in a more effective way, they're things that you can do that will help. But the most important thing is to make yourself safe, because if you make yourself safe, all of those other things can happen. And I know it's really scary. I know that nobody wants to go to hospital. I appreciate it. But I also know that that's very often the thing that you need to do in these moments. If you want us to call an ambulance, you just need to send us your name and address to my messages on Facebook and we'll sort it out for you, okay? So just know that as well. And also just be aware that your self-harm, it's a coping strategy, right? It's a really bad one, but at least you're trying. You know, don't feel ashamed of it. I'm saying it's a really bad one, not because you're stupid, not because you're a fool, but because it's one that causes permanent issues for you, right? So it's a bad one in that respect. So like if you were on here saying, when I get really stressed, I do arts and crafts, or I do puzzling, or I do brain training on my apps, I'd be like, that's a really good coping strategy. That's a really effective one. Or even I get elastic bands around my wrists and I flick them and I hold ice. Again, I'd be like, they're really good coping strategies, well done. And it's not that I'm not saying you've got a coping strategy, because you have. I'm saying that there are far better ones, but often you need help discovering those. So explore that. And the other thing is anything that can reduce the anxiety and stress levels. So aside from me saying about ringing the hospital to get some help, remember that the good old-fashioned remedies for anxiety, they're for a reason. So going on long walks or runs, exercising, eating a healthy, really healthy diet, meditation, mindful practice, yoga, doing things that bring the stress levels down. Because the more you bring down the stress level, the less the self-harm triggers exist. So those are things that I'd also recommend. But the most important thing right now is to make yourself safe. Hi Emma, I'm suffering really bad at the moment and would really like some coping tips. I know stress and anxiety are making my health conditions worse. I really need someone to talk to. Hope you can help. So stress and anxiety, I think, are words that we've become really used to in the past few years, because even when people have not necessarily suffered from things like anxiety or depression ever before, most of us have had periods in the past few years of thinking, wow, I'm literally going under, because there's been a lot of secondary trauma. And I'm saying that because I think a lot of people who are listening right now, there's a strong possibility that one of the things that you've really noticed about yourself in the past few years, and obviously I'm talking about COVID and the absolute catastrophe of what lockdown did and social isolation. I'm out there, you all know, I've told people how I feel. I really don't care about the backlash. Welcome the backlash. I'm massively against lockdowns. I think they're catastrophic, diabolical, horrific, and unforgivable, to be honest. And the impact that they've had on human beings, isolating us from people that we love, taking us away from our families, keeping the elderly in reprehensible situations, is diabolical. And that's just where I start. This isn't talking about the fact that then we've got secondary trauma in every home because we've pumped propaganda and fear into the homes of millions of people and then expected them to be okay. So most people, if you are well adjusted, will have had a serious drop in your mental health and well-being, and you will have felt things like anxiety, stress, potential low mood, stroke, depression. These are all to do with the external violation and abuse that you have had thrown at you in the past 20 months. So part of this stress and anxiety isn't you, it's the coercive, abusive relationship that you've been forced into, and it's created scars, and they're going to take time to heal. And some of you listening will be like, well, I think it was really great locking down and making us do A, B and C, and that's okay, but you still had collateral damage, whether you like it or otherwise. You're still going to have had secondary trauma involved in that. It's going to have happened, so you're going to have had an impact. Some of you will be angry like I am and have all these feelings about the reprehensible nature and impacts of the losses that we've incurred because of it. It doesn't matter, that's still, you're going to be traumatised. So pretty much all of us, it doesn't matter where we come from on this spectrum, we all have these feelings. So know first of all that part of this isn't you, because that's helpful. You can go, oh, okay, so some of this feeling that I've got that's really difficult, I can actually kind of go, well, I'm going to put that in a bit of a compartment and say, that was forced on me by the government. That was forced on me when I had to protect the NHS. It was forced on me when I had to be exposed to all of this news. It's forced on me. right, maybe I don't need that bit. Maybe I can say, right, it's not about me. That's why I'm struggling to control it, because it wasn't me controlling it at all. And then we can kind of go, okay, well, let's put that to the side. So there's a certain amount of that stress and anxiety. I can say, right, let me let that go. It's not mine. I didn't want it. I didn't choose it. And I'm not having it anymore. And then we can come back to the, okay, but what can I do with the remainder stress? Well, one of the things is start making some educated risks. So think about goals that you can take and make. I mean it. Do things that scare you. Everybody should be doing this. Make a list, a bucket list of fears that you want to face incrementally. Don't do the big ones first. You know, if you're scared of heights, don't do what I did and throw yourself out of a plane. It's probably maybe 6 or 7 steps down the line. But think about some things that scare you. Make some small goals, break them into milestones and start working those goals, because that will reduce your anxiety, because you will start realising that you are more courageous than you believed you were, and you'll be meeting fear with bravery, and that is key. Secondly, what de-stresses are you actively engaged in right now? Because I get tired of people telling me that they've tried diaphragmatic breathing and that it didn't work. Well, unless you are not actually human with lungs and things like cortisol and adrenaline, you're wrong. What you mean is, I didn't practice enough. So, box breath, 3 times a day. In through the nose for 4, hold for 4, breathe out through the mouth for 4, hold for 4, repeat 10 minutes, 3 times a day, 30 minutes in total. Meditation, do it before you go to bed. I've got loads of free stuff on my YouTube, loads. For sleep, for pain, the lot of it. Try it. You might not like my stuff, that's okay. There's like 1 billion other people out there who create content for free. Use it. Use it. Get outside. I keep saying this. Join my walking revolution, 90 minutes a day, in white light, brisk if you can. Try to get your heartbeat going, but get that white light on your skin. Your brain needs it right now. When it comes down to how you relax, how do you relax? Like, everybody likes a glass of wine, but it's probably not the best for you. Believe me, I like a glass of wine as well. But what can you do health-wise that you can change some of your foundations? Is it your diet? Is it your exercise? Is it what you eat and drink? You know, what can you do to change and motivate that? What's your sleep like? Sleep's a massive pillar. So when you think about sleep, how good is it? Are you going to bed early enough? Research says that people who choose to go to bed an hour earlier than they usually do and get up an hour earlier than they usually would, they reduce their depressive symptoms by 30%. That is bloody huge. So can you think about better, healthier bedroom routines that are actually going to have a positive impact on you? And then journaling. Whenever I'm really struggling, I write. I used to write religiously every single day for many, many, many years, like most of my life. And then probably the year before Dad died, I kind of started doing it when I needed, and I do it when I need now. But it's so powerful. Write it down, externalize it. And then I suppose the other thing is with stress and anxiety, like, what is it informing you of? Like, what is the information? So if you say, I feel stressed and anxious, you need to kind of go, okay, what is it representing? What is this stress and anxiety representing? Am I worried about my job? Am I worried about the economy? Am I worried about a relationship? Am I worried about my future? What am I identifying as the main priority of concern? How am I informing myself about that issue? What is my fear about the outcome? You have to break it down. It's almost like sitting down and literally putting down on paper, what is my anxiety about? Sometimes it will be very clear. Sometimes it might be a bit more abstract. But if you sit down and start penning it, you'll literally start figuring out which feels right. And you'll have to test it out. You might be like, oh, is it my relationship? And you'll be like, yeah, well, bits of it stress me out, but it doesn't feel quite right. Is it my job? Well, I like my job. But that doesn't mean it's not your job, because it could be, but I don't think I'm getting as far as I need to, or I don't think that person likes me in my job, or maybe I'm in a job that I like, but it's not really making me feel the desire that I thought it would give me. So what do I need to ultimately change? Figure it out. It's there to inform you. It's not there to make you stressed and anxious. It's there to find you soothing and calm. And you find soothing and calm when you are aware of what that abstract feeling of anxiousness and stress has clarified itself to, this is the pertinent points that I need to work on to achieve the calm and soothing that is required for me to feel at peace. But like I said, bringing it back to the point that I brought up at the beginning, it's been a shit show in the past 20 months. And some of you might have thrived but the vast majority of humans have not thrived. The vast majority of humans have been horribly impacted. The vast majority of humans have been coercively abused. And I really don't care whether people think that's offensive to our government. It's a reality, and it's something that history will explore in the future. And it won't matter whether people believe it's right or wrong. What will matter is, in spite of that, how did it damage the population, and how we must never damage an innocent population of well-behaved humans ever again, at least in my lifetime. Either way, if it's a lifetime, I'll be saying this before and until the last breath I take. Hi Emma, I've recently been diagnosed as autistic, and I've been researching everything myself as I have very little support in place, as there's not a lot available. I came across a condition known as selective mutism, and I really think it might apply to me. Is there a way of overcoming this? Many thanks in advance. Really enjoying your true crime on YouTube, by the way. Thank you very much. You're a member of Kenny's cult. Simple as that. Even if you're not a willing participant, it's a cult, so you don't have a choice. Okay, so selective mutism, I think you might be on, because that's a question that I think has just been put up. Is that right? It's Will. Hi, Will. You are in Kenny's cult. Okay, so selective mutism, for those of you who don't know, is an anxiety spectrum disorder, and it is where the individual who's suffering from it literally, in certain situations, cannot speak. Now, it isn't a willful not speaking. It's very important to acknowledge that. It's not that the person is actively choosing not to speak. It is that the anxiety is so voracious and overpowering that they physically cannot speak. A paralysis, so to speak, of what most of us consider an automatic reaction. So with selective mutism, that would be where we would categorise it and classify it. So I've worked with selective mute children, and with young children, they will happily talk in front of the people that they feel very confident with, or they used to, like parents, sometimes certain friends and family members. But if a stranger walks in, it's gone, it's over, they're not going to be able to do that. And what we do when we're working with selective mute children is we do like a grading exposure exercise. So there will be lots of different ways. The way I used to work with young children, because young children I used to work with, and particularly with this condition, it was always the same. We would get mum to come in or dad to come in. This is when they went to school, and it became more of a bigger issue because it's often not noticed very often. People just think people are very shy, but it's not that. It's bigger than shy. It's a massive anxiety issue. So we would get mum or dad to come in and sit with the child, usually outside of class, get them used to doing certain activities, usually have the SEN worker getting closer and closer and closer till almost they're absorbed over the weeks into a situation where the SEN, special educational needs teacher, is as part of that symbiotic bubble of it's okay to speak in front of them. So then mum can remove themselves or dad can remove themselves, and then the SEN teacher will start gradually getting the child closer to the classroom and start getting other people into the bubble. And over time, it gets better. It's as simple as that. And it really does get better. The vast majority of people who are selective mute as children, by the age of like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they're okay. But when it comes down to autism, we're in a slightly different category. So autism is obviously something that can have a bed of anxiety within it, because most people go out masking their behaviour constantly and making themselves bend and break and shape so the world accepts them, which is exhausting. And autistic people are so aware of everybody else's feelings and thoughts around them that they want to make everybody be okay by not showing the fact that they struggle. And so they go out of their way to try to act like they get everything and understand everything that often feels like a foreign language. So my job, and many people who are practitioners in my world, our job is to make the person with autism realise that they're perfectly all right as they are. Like, they're completely okay, because at the end of the day, they might be divergent when it comes down to their neuro experience, but that's what makes them special. It'll be what makes them talented in loads of different ways. But bringing it back to the could you be selective mute? Well, you have to ask yourself this question. do you become completely incapable, as in completely rendered helpless when you're around other people and you cannot literally physically utter a word? That would be something that you want to explore, because that could be something that would suggest that mutism was part of it. But again, you're quite old for that, but that doesn't matter. Everybody can be a certain paradigm anytime. Or is it that you have hyper anxiety because you're constantly thinking, how do I need to act and what do I need to say about this person, around this person? Because at the end of the day, I'm thinking so much about how to make them okay with me that I'm not making me okay with me. And if that's the case, and I would imagine that we're more talking that you're so worried about the way that people are going to hear you and manage you in their world that you're like, I best say nothing. Which is something that we want to get past, because realizing that whatever you say is okay because it's who you are and it's part of what makes you you. And even if it doesn't go down amazingly well with one person, that doesn't mean that you're wrong or that you shouldn't say that. So it's bringing it back and saying, like, actually, maybe what I need to start doing is saying to people, I really struggle in social situations because I'm autistic and I feel nervous about just being me. And the minute you kind of allow that and own it, you reduce your anxiety significantly, because the person will be naturally, like most human beings are, pretty empathetic to it. It will be oh, that's cool. Now I know. And that kind of makes sense, because sometimes Will looks like he's feeling awkward around this situation. And it's amazingly liberating and freeing. I'll put on here, not this time, but Will, you come regularly. My son's working with a woman who's creating like an app for neurodivergency. It's going to be amazing. She's making workplaces better for people who are neurodivergent. So I'll figure out when I can get that information and put it out there, because that might be really helpful. She's all about making workspaces, workplaces, community experiences miles more adaptable for people who are neurodivergent. So I think that she's going to be somebody great for you to get in contact with. Right, guys, I will be saying goodbye as it is now 8:30, and I'm going to, go off and have my anniversary glass of wine, obviously. It's one of those times, isn't it? Celebrate with the old man. Celebrate with the old man. He's actually younger than me, but that's irrelevant because he has more lines. And I have a lot of lines, but he has more lines. Going to save up in the next 5 years for our total facial reconstruction. We're probably going to go to is it North Korea where they do them? Which one's the one that's all right? I don't want to, is it South Korea? I don't want to go to North Korea. Oh, that'd be terrible. I know, good luck with that one, Em. Getting on the plane, turning out like, what? Why is no one chatting? Where's the hospital for facial rejuvenation? I don't know who's going to fly me there either. So it'll be South Korea that I'm going to, just to have that total facial have you ever seen that? Just to say, if you want to have 5 minutes of fun after this, just look up extreme makeovers in South Korea, or the Swan South Korea. Honestly, guys, I'm not sure that the person who goes in to have the surgery is the person who comes out. Not sure. I mean, I think the families of the person who comes out think that it's the person that went in, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. If you look at those, you get in touch with me, leave a note, have a look. Extreme Makeover South Korea. It's like there's a whole different, there's nothing about them that looks anything like the person that they were. It's incredible. Anyway, we're going to do that probably in 5 years, and then I'll look 22 and perfect. So I won't look wonky anymore. See you soon, chaps. Take care, and I'll see you on Wednesday if you come into the crime stuff. Kenny's Crime Cult forever.